I'm joined by Harry Littman of Talking Feds and the Talking Feds YouTube channel. By the way, make sure you subscribe there. Harry Littman, where we last left off last week on our hot takes together, there seemed to be potentially disaster imminent. The Southern District of New York at the 11th hour dropped 31,000 new documents after previously dropping 70,000 documents, said there was going to be 15,000 or so more documents coming. And we were like, whoa, what is happening here? Is this truly going to derail the Manhattan District Attorney criminal case? But this is why you got to be a little bit patient. The facts have to come out. And it's what we always tell our viewers and listeners here, like, okay, here's what we've learned on Friday, but let's wait till we get more data. Well, we've got more data right now. We've got some additional filings in the Manhattan District Attorney criminal case. And the district attorney's team putting forward a lot of information that, look, they're arguing this is a lot to do about nothing. What we're really talking about here is maybe just 270 documents that may have some relevance here out of this batch of documents that relates primarily to the Michael Cohen plea that the Southern District of New York took several years back. And the district attorney really went from, I think putting a lot of the onus here when you and I were talking about it last week on SDNY to really kind of reining that in and saying, we've heard from the SDNY. What this really seems to be about is that Donald Trump and his team subpoenaed records around January 18th or 16th of 2024 for the first time in a way that was calculated, it seems, to really delay it. And this is really all Donald Trump's fault. And it's not even all that relevant anyway. And of course, Trump's lawyers take a different view. There's going to be a big hearing on this on March 25th. But the Manhattan DA saying, look, Judge Merchan, you've extended this trial. You've adjourned this trial till mid-April. It doesn't need to be adjourned again. Let's get this thing started mid-April. What do you make all of this? And do you think my summary right there sets the stage appropriately?
Of course it sets the stage appropriately. What do I make of it? So first, then the headline is, as you say, Ben, these, possibly 100,000 plus pages are really understood in terms of the issue that matters. Namely, how long does Trump now need to absorb the information and prepare his defense accordingly? And Bragg's view is 30 days. By the way, they've already adjourned it 30 days and no more. That's the legal issue. And that number to me seems about right. And from what we know about Judge Merchan, I would expect him going about in that direction. So what we have is, as you say, some information having to do with Michael Cohen. Remember, they prosecuted him, but didn't go further, but they did some investigation. So some of what might have been happening had to do with their protecting what they saw as their own investigation. But when this erupted, well, let me get back to SDNY and that the whole possible brouhaha in a second. The number one point, how much time does he need? This looks to be some information he could use perhaps to impeach Michael Cohen, not even having to do with anything that's exculpatory on its own, but maybe you could use to impeach. He's got a lot of stuff to impeach already. So that issue, if Merchan is focused there, and he ought to be, is fairly cut and dried, and it suggests a delay of no more than we already have of a month. But there's a little bit of a wild card here, because Merchan, at least when he first heard about this, said he wanted a 2-day hearing. And right now the hearing that's happening is scheduled for 2 days. What the hell are they going to do in 2 days for a hearing? And the obvious thing they would do is some kind of, I think, even a little bit of Fulton County and that whole circus, which I think was actually mishandled by McAfee, a generally good judge, is Merchant going to be really very interested in who hit John and how this happened and what does the SDNY say? There are arguments, by the way, why it could have taken that long, but will that be a focus of the hearing? Because that matters only if, and I think even more in Fulton County, if something he determines occurred could lead to some kind of additional time, or I'm sure Trump will say should lead to dismissal because it's selective prosecution and all these things. I think that the number one point here is Bragg seems almost certainly blameless and the DA blameless. So I don't see a state of affairs that actually helps Trump out. But if Merchan goes into this whole kind of evidentiary hearing, and what else would you use for 2 days about just what happened, some, forensic examination, it is a can of worms, the same way Fulton County, not an affair, but whatever, a can of worms. Where is he taking someone to task? Does he say, I want a representative of DOJ or SDNY on the stand? I think if he takes a deep breath, none of it really, the only reason something like that should matter is if it gives rise under the law to some additional recourse, time, even remedy like dismissal, as Trump will be arguing for. I don't see how it does. And one possible way this plays out is they talk about it for a half a day and Merchan says, I've heard enough. I'll give you my ruling. And he finds, hopefully, you need 30 days, Trump. That's all you need. And we don't have to think about anymore what happened before this got to you. But there's this little mystery, just as when McAfee, we were all thinking, he said evidentiary hearing? What does he want to do? And we found out what he wanted to do. When Merchan says 2 days, it makes you scratch your head a little and wonder what he has in mind. So what the focus really ought to be is how much time does Trump need now? I don't see why when this 200 pages or whatever should take more than a month, even that much to absorb. But we have this kind of question mark hanging out there of what exactly Merchan wants to do with this very long. I mean, as you know from being a lawyer, that's a very long time for this kind of issue to be, given for him to consider.
Well, look, the big difference between Judge Merchan and Judge Scott McAfee is experience, number one. And with that experience, you saw how Judge Merchan very quickly set a trial date, where Judge Scott McAfee didn't set a trial date. So that's a big difference. We also see what Judge Merchan has recently done with his other orders as well. He's very expeditiously went through these motion and limines. And
excellent point. Yep.
He's making orders consistent with I am ready for trial, getting into the granularity of what this trial is going to be looking like, rejecting a lot of Trump's nonsense PR style motion and limines, which you and I would both say are basically frivolous on their face, except if you're Judge Eileen Cannon. And Judge Merchan's like, no, you're not going to be able to exclude the witnesses. Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, your own statements, Donald Trump, those are the things that come in a trial. And you can't make up your own fake advice of counsel defense and say it's going to be a informal advice of counsel defense. You either assert advice of counsel or not. So Merchan made those types of rulings, which to me indicates that he's on track for this trial. Does it start mid-April? Does it start May 8th or the first or second week of May? To me, this is happening in 45 days. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, so I agree. And I just want to second what you said. He was very decisive, forceful, and he basically gave the DA what they wanted. You're right. Trump doesn't get to do advice of counsel, a selective prosecution, and he's laid down the law, which is what really matters, because when, and it's inevitable, Trump or his lawyer tries to open that door a little, Merchan is in a position, and the DA is, to say, objection, see it sidebar. We told you you can't do it. On the other hand, he's permitting the DA to tell a pretty broad story that encompasses Access Hollywood, other victims like Karen McDougal, the whole catch and kill scheme that this represents, and even the 2020 election denial. He's permitting the DA to tell a broad story having to do with Trump trying to keep this information out because of its impact on the election. That's what the DA wants. It's what Trump doesn't want. So he was not only decisive, but fairly forceful on behalf of the kind of narrative and presentation that Bragg wants to make, and precluding and having in place, guidelines to preclude Trump from telling the kind of extraneous, bogus story and defenses that he wants to propound.
Well, we'll keep everybody posted, but as soon as we learn what's happening in that hearing on Monday, March 25th, we'll let everybody know. And I think our prediction both here is that it'd be surprising if this lasted 2 days, but it would be surprising if there's significant delay, but we'll keep you all posted. Make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. It is rapidly expanding and growing, and then make sure you subscribe here as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.